I'm joined now by the U.S. Senator from Connecticut, Chris Murphy. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, awesome to be with you.
So I want to turn your attention to a tweet that you posted that I think really perfectly encapsulated the moment that we're in right now. I'll put that on the screen right here. I have news for you. We aren't taking over Gaza, but the media and the chattering class will focus on it for a few days, and Trump will have succeeded in distracting everyone from the real story, the billionaires seizing government to steal from regular people. So we've seen this strategy before. And by the way, they're not shy about actually imposing this strategy. Steve Bannon calls it outright flooding the zone with shit, and that's what we're seeing at play right now. I mean, they're calling it the shock and awe campaign. They're freeing insurrectionists. They're signing executive orders. They're, whatever they can do to basically scatter everybody's attention in 15 different directions is what they're doing right now. But to the exact point that you were making with your tweet, the billionaire seizing government to steal from regular people, can you explain what's happening right now as far as Elon Musk is concerned, wherein he's effectively running unaccountable to every different government agency with no oversight by anybody else in the executive branch or even those in the legislative branch whose job is to jealously guard their own prerogatives?
Well, thanks for amplifying that post because I've spent the last 24 hours avoiding reporters' questions here at the Capitol about Trump's comments on Gaza. Not because they don't have impact. I mean, no, we're not occupying or invading Gaza, but just saying that makes America less safe. But right now, we need to be laser focused on what is happening in the United States of America because we are literally losing our democracy as we speak to the billionaires that are brazenly taking control of the government so that they can turn the government into a fountain of profit for themselves. So, why does Elon Musk want to shut down USAID? Well, a couple of reasons. First, he makes a lot of money off of American foreign policy and off of his relationship with China. So he makes half his cars in China. He wants American foreign policy to be friendly to China. And a really nice gift to China is the erasure of USAID. This is the agency that essentially chases China around the world trying to reduce their influence. And now that it's gone, China can expand its influence and the amount of
And
money that it makes off of.
And just digging into that for a second, they
Yeah.
have basically a counter program. That's the Belt and Road Initiative. Is that correct? Where they basically try to imbue their own soft power across the world as kind of a counter to USAID. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a race that's underway right now. Who is going to control, the piping of the international economy, the highways, the information highways, the port infrastructure, the supply of critical minerals that are necessary for chips and batteries. In order to control that infrastructure, you've got to have governments all over the world that are willing to sell it to you. And USAID helps us create relationships with countries so that when they're selling a port, they don't automatically just go to China, that they at least let the United States make a bid. Now that USAID is gone off the playing field, the only place that those countries have to go for help confronting viruses or addressing a famine or economic development is China. And so China will be able to build all of these relationships around the world, and then all of a sudden we'll wake up one day and the United States economy doesn't have access to the global economy because China owns it all. So when USAID steps off the playing field, China benefits, and I do not believe that that is coincidental to Elon Musk having a number of very open issues through his businesses with the Chinese government. They may be willing to do him some nice favors, given that Elon Musk has taken USAID off the playing field.
But Senator, it's so nakedly obvious how that is not beneficial to the long-term success of like, sure, being able to say, okay, we've cut X amount of dollars out of the budget, and the immediate benefit, the short-term benefit of that is obvious, at least as a talking point for Republicans. But by basically taking away any of our ability to be able to have relationships and optimize those relationships, leverage those relationships across the world, how that's going to hurt us in the long term, how is that not blatantly obvious to every single Republican in government right now who's blindly going along with this? I mean, really the only person on its face that this seems to benefit is somebody who just so happens to be doing business in China, which is Elon.
No, that's right. Although, frankly, it benefits a lot of other billionaires because a lot of them make massive amounts of money off of China. Why did the Chinese tariffs come in at a much lower number than the Mexico and Canada tariffs? That's because the billionaire class wants to continue to make money off of making stuff over in China. Listen, the whole thing is a fraud. The reason that the billionaires led by Elon Musk are shutting down all these government contracts is so they can turn back on the ones that benefit them or their political interests or economic interests and shut off the ones that perhaps help their competitors. I mean, don't believe for a second that Elon Musk's money is going to dry up, but Elon Musk's competitors' money might dry up now that he has control over the Treasury system and he can determine who gets paid and who doesn't. This is a capture of our government by Musk and his billionaire friends, and it is pretty amazing to me, to your point, that Republicans don't see it. It speaks to how much control the billionaires and Donald Trump have over Republicans, that they are just trying to pretend that this corruption isn't existing right in front of our faces.
Can we dig into the last thing you said, which is this idea that Elon Musk now has control of who gets paid in the Treasury and who doesn't? This isn't the job of it's not the prerogative of the executive branch to determine whether somebody gets paid through funds that were already allocated by Congress, whose sole prerogative is to determine who gets paid and who doesn't get paid. And so how effective can they actually be? Like, the disconnect here is that I understand that you're going to say that they can't do it, but then also it looks like they're doing it. And so that's where the disconnect happens for me, because I understand in theory one thing should be happening, but in practice it looks like another.
Well, it is happening. So Musk and his allies, empowered by Trump, right? Trump is part of this. They've taken control of the Department of Treasury payment system. This is a system that basically pays every bill and benefit in the federal government. This is where your tax refund gets written out of. This is where your Social Security benefit gets written out of. This is where every grant to every preschool funded by the federal government gets written out of. Musk now has control of that system reportedly. And he hasn't been shy about announcing that he is going to apply his own standards as to who gets paid or not. And that means that agencies that are run by Democrats might not get paid. That means one day your mom might post something snarky about Elon Musk on social media, and her Social Security check might be interrupted. It's unthinkable that an unelected billionaire with a clear political agenda, right? He hates anybody that's not loyal to Donald Trump and him, is
Right.
now determining who gets paid and who doesn't. Now, this will be shut down by the courts, but other things have been shut down by the courts that Donald Trump has tried to do in the first week, and he's still doing it. So the next step is what you would commonly refer to as contempt. So you have these court orders that are saying, Donald Trump, you can't turn off USAID, you can't stop payments to states and to not-for-profits, and he's continuing to cut off those payments. The next step will be going back to court and holding Trump or the people that are controlling those payment systems in contempt. So we still have legal remedies here, but we need to up the outside political pressure as well, so that they know that there's ultimately a massive political price to pay for what they're doing.
What about the Republican colleagues? I mean, isn't it that the legislative branch should be jealously guarding their own responsibilities here, their own power as a co-equal branch of government, and yet there is conspicuous silence among all of your Republican colleagues in the Senate as well as the members in the House conference? Are they perfectly content to just contract every ounce of their power over to the executive branch and just basically become an extension of Trump's cabinet?
Well, this is what is the most dangerous development. And of course, this is a development 4 years old. On January 6th, 2021, Republicans essentially decided that they'd given up on democracy, that they cared more about holding on to power permanently than they did about the people getting to decide. Donald Trump lost, and most Republicans in Congress endorsed the assault on the Capitol because they just didn't care that the American public had voted for Joe Biden. They wanted Donald Trump in power. And so, yes, most Republicans are very consciously looking the other way as Trump and Musk seize control of the government, because they absolutely see it as a mechanism by which they can crush dissent. They believe that if there are threats of violence against activists, if your parents' Social Security check is going to be interrupted if you show up at a rally, that they ultimately can bury the opposition to Trump and Musk, and that the Trump family can rule permanently. Now, they are wrong. There are more Americans, way more Americans, that want to keep control of their government and want to preserve democracy. And that's our job right now, is through civic action and ultimately perhaps civil disobedience, if it comes to that, to show the American public and show this administration that they're not going to get away with this.
To that point, then, I know that your colleagues in the Senate are actually taking some action against the impending Russ Vote confirmation battle. Can you explain what you have planned?
So Russ Vought is not a household name. People aren't talking about him like they're talking about RFK Jr. Or Tulsi Gabbard. But Russ Vought is the author, the organizer of Project 2025. That's the game plan to essentially convert America from a democracy to some version of an autocracy. And so all the things that are happening right now, the mass firings of public employees, the eventual shutdown of the Department of Education, all of that is Russ Vought's plan. He is nominated to be the Secretary of the Office of Budget and Management, which kind of oversees the entire budget for the White House. And his nomination is going to be voted on tomorrow. Normally, we would debate during the day today, come back again tomorrow, debate, and then vote. Democrats are going to keep the Senate in overnight tonight. We're going to use every single hour that the rules allow for us to explain the danger of putting somebody like Russ Vought in OMB, somebody who has such disdain for democracy and whose allegiance is to the billionaire class, not the American people. Now, that's an easy thing to do, Brian, to say that you're going to hold the floor all night. And so when we started signing up for shifts, there was this gap of 2 a.m. to 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And so I will be taking the 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. shift. So I'll be on the floor from 2 to 5. I've certainly got 3 hours of material to talk about Russ Vought and to talk about the fraud, the steal that's being perpetuated on the American people. But hopefully, this will match the energy that we're seeing out there in the public as you're seeing the crowd swell at these rallies and town halls.
Well, look, I understand that Democrats have limited political capital to use or limited political power, given that we're in the minority everywhere. But I think having this fight and getting caught trying counts for a lot here, and sends a signal to Americans that we're not going to take this laying down, and that by using every avenue that we have, even if they're not ultimately going to be successful, even if it serves the purpose of delay, by showing people that there is fight here and that we have folks who are willing to stand up, I think does send the message that we're looking for right now. So appreciate you taking the time today, and appreciate the work that you're doing, and good luck from 2 to 5 a.m. here.
Thanks, man.